say a little tidbit of just what is your special topic, and just saying thanks folks for tuning in to Therapy House.
This is Jorge on the mic. We're going to be talking a little bit about the school-based outreach. I just hope you guys tune in and find out a little bit just what that means, the importance of it in therapy, and how it can continue to just open doors for people, especially out there in the community. For my people, from being from a Mexican background to other minorities and just other people that just, this can be an opportunity for them to grow. That's the music right there.
Ha ha ha.
All right, well, welcome to Therapy House, episode 2.
My dogs.
We got Jay,
We
got
back.
Maya, Lou,
Was good.
John Tong in the building.
Shit. It's J out to the DR, baby. You know me.
That's right.
J out to the DR, kid.
Oh, man.
You got Jorge here as well.
Oh, man.
J to the B to the R.
Damn.
J out to the DR,
Is
son.
that Dr. Ramos intros?
That's right. J out to the DR.
Ramos.
Damn.
Well, we got a chance to introduce ourselves in the last episode. Everybody shared a little bit about their individual experience with therapy, how they got started, their career paths. So keep tuning in as everybody shares a little bit more about their topics. But today, I'll be leading the discussion and hopefully share some stories and hear from my fellow colleagues. The topic is going to be school-based and outreach. And if that sounds kind of weird to you, just think about it from a prevention lens. A lot of the times when we think about therapy, we talk about interventions, what that means, kind of helping people in the moment. But one thing that I think in grad school, I never really was taught. I don't know about you guys, but did we ever have a class on prevention, or was it all just about interventions?
I mean, you definitely talk a lot about assessments and assessing, but prevention, not a lot, man.
Yeah, there's not a lot about that. No, I don't remember even a class about that or even anything taught about that. Yeah. So it's interesting.
I remember the same thing. I remember taking 2 assessment classes and really diving deep in as far as what kind of assessment tools are you going to use? How do you rule out certain diagnoses? But I don't really ever remember hearing what do you do for prevention? It was always about after you find the assessment, you get the treatment plan, and the interventions. So the reason I kind of got into this field and why I want to talk about this today is, for the most part, because this is what I'm working on right now. This is kind of where I'm at in my therapeutic career, working on this. I haven't really done much more intervention work, I guess. Where prevention is still under sort of outpatient work, right? Where people that go to agencies or schools. But I think for the most part, probably, I'll be honest, has been kind of just my limited experience within therapy. A lot of the way that I sort of dealt with my problems, or at least I got through shit, was, I guess it was trying to do prevention work or trying to do early interventions in myself. And not until I went to grad school did I, really understand that going to therapy was not just about when you were in a crisis, right? But you also go to therapy to sort of self-develop and kind of prevent other things, right? I know that was something that was heavily promoted in school, get your own therapy for development. But I'm wondering, for all of you guys, did you guys, when you guys were in school, did you participate in your own therapy? Sort of self-growth or anything like that?
Well, before that, to say that, can you actually do prevention therapy? I thought therapy is usually when you come to, when some shit is going on. Other than that, it would be other programs, other resources that would be put in place for prevention, but you don't we're going to do therapy because, your life is good right now.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's about like seeing the warning signs, right? And it's like, is this a pattern? Is this getting worse? Maybe these are the people who are kind of on the radar. Like maybe these people who are a little bit more, isolating at school, or more, just like, concerning things. Like, I think people everywhere kind of start just seeing things and noticing, and it's just a word. Sometimes you can get a referral, right? Like I've worked in a high school before, or like I remember one time when my cousin was a little kid in school. They asked him one time to like draw his family, draw his house, and things like that. But my tío and his family, wife and two kids, for a long time, were very poor and low income, and so my primo, he drew like a very small thing, and like drew like his room where like they all slept together, like it was bunk beds, and then mom and dad on the separate like bed, and like I guess they got flagged at school by a teacher because it was just like, what is going on here, like what are these living conditions like, and so they called home, and I guess that's something that you would say would be like a preventative mood, right? And then you would kind of I don't know whatever happened after that with my primo. I don't think anything happened, but that would be something that could be concerning, like if he was showing signs of depression, or like what's going on, right? Like if they were to ask him to talk to a school counselor.
Well, that's one of the markers, right? Like I think your question is really important, Jeremiah, because you're right. How do you really, like, an intervention is like when you're helping somebody that's in need, right? But prevention is definitely more along the lines of how do you educate the people around this population, and how do you sort of give them the tools to be able to identify those things, right? A teacher, for example, doesn't have to be a therapist, but they can at least have some information to be like, okay, I know maybe some questions to ask, or I know in our field we use this term a lot of trauma informed. It's a clinical term, it's sort of an academic term as far as how do you sort of conceptualize and approach certain responses and how people behave. And lately in our job, we've been doing a little bit of like coaching teachers. How do you recognize these signs, and simply just activate a referral. But prevention, it definitely is more about how do you equip, whether it's parents or teachers or staff or the community, with the ability to actually screen for these things that are happening, right? Rather than actually not enable them, but sort of feel helpless, not do anything, and then you get that intense case, right, where you get that referral.
That bully in school, that bully that was beating up other people, that got asked, hey, is there something going on at home? And then you find out that there's abuse and, domestic violence, and this is a cycle, and right? I mean, there has to be a way of filtering out in the system, like, oh, like what are the warning signs, right? Like what sets off that referral? What makes it prevention?
Kind of, the same thing kind of for like suicide, you know what I mean? Just teaching teachers, teaching parents, like, hey, like if you see this in your kid, if they're isolating, or maybe you're seeing some comments on social media that they're putting on there, and it's like, seems like it can be like about wanting to harm themselves or kill themselves, like that's so important to know, and that because, you can stop that from happening, and like how many times that people don't know, or they see the warning signs are there, but they just don't know, they haven't been properly, communicated like those signs of like how, if a person is suicidal, wanting to kill themselves, like what does it look like? And so many kids have killed themselves because of that. If there would have been someone like you going into a school or talking to teachers and like parents about this stuff, like, it could have prevented a lot of that stuff. But
I agree. I think it's worth noting that, though, I've come across a lot of teachers who've had the training or may have had the resources and X, Y, and Z, but because they don't want to get on the bad side of the student, you don't want to become the bad teacher, or you don't want to just have this bad relationship with the student, and then, you're in the referring to, making a referral, and then eventually it's just like a snowball effect of bad stuff, like bad shit happening. So you have the good side of finding the warning signs, but in some teachers' cases, You know, you're too empathetic, you're too caring to try to step in, right? And I think that's an area where that needs to be addressed as well.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I just had a client the other day too who had said, I was just asking, like, you know, we're barely starting. It's like our second session, and at this point in the therapy process, I just asked him, like, you know, how was your other therapy relationships that you've had, your past therapists? Like, you know, was it a good relationship? Was it a bad relationship? You know, just trying to gauge if he's even in the process, you know. And he had told me that that this previous therapist had taken a comment that he had said, you know, that like, oh, like my brother hits me. Like it was kind of like a sibling rivalry. Like they got into like a little tussle at home, brothers being brothers type of thing. But he felt like he didn't understand that this therapist then like escalated it all the way to saying that this might have been abuse, you know, and that you know, this was happening at home, like under, you know, and there was parental neglect and things like that. Even did a CPS report, and then yeah, the mom and my client were just like, yeah, that none of that like had happened. Like there was no cause for concern. It was like just a random, you know, just like a regular, you know, brothers being brothers type of thing. There was no like level of abuse, but just the way that she had heard it, I guess that therapist just had raised these alarm bells, you know. So yeah, prevention could definitely be tricky. Like what are those warning signs? You know, like what are those things that you hear that then you're like, okay, this person needs to be seeing somebody, or like, you know, we need to make a referral.
Yeah, but you can't necessarily provide therapy for, well, you can do it to prevent things from getting worse, but then there still needs to be an issue there. If we're just talking about early intervention, prevention in and of itself, then yeah, you're talking about making sure there's pre-screeners, making sure there's, you know, people have the resources and tools and they ask the right questions to pass it along of like, hey, this is something serious, we got to bump you up. And, or this is something that's, you know, sibling rivalry, this is some normal, or like, hey, you're all sleeping on the same bed, maybe we can provide you with additional support, connect you with who you need to be with. But I mean, it doesn't sound like we can actually, there has to, one, be a presenting issue.
Right.
Then therapy comes in.
And it's definitely more of a short-term thing, like you say, because if at one point you're seeing a client for over a year, almost 2 years, is it really prevention at that point? Is it an early intervention? You know, if you're working with somebody, I know I've been working with clients that at this point I know that it's not early intervention anymore. You know, but you know, I feel like I can still take on this case and work with them and at least give them something to work in. And if, you know, I'm at least being the provider for them, like who else are they going to get a referral for? They got to wait for a referral for another outpatient service. They're already open with me. I have the capacity. But you're right, it is very more short term, and that's usually what I ask parents. You know, like, is this something that you think that you can accomplish within 6 months, or something even within 3 months sometimes? You know, just because it is of that early intervention, like you just kind of need to kind of grab and go what you need, and go. But I feel like it is tricky because prevention is like, you know, I think about my own like, what do I try to prevent? I try to prevent, I don't know, maybe gaining weight. You know, and just shit, like, especially with COVID out here, I'm getting these, you know, like little lonjas out here, you know, but
The little love handles.
Salchichas.
I know, basically.
Salchichas.
But it's like, man, I'm trying to prevent that, but at the same time, like, I'm aware of prevention, right? Like, we're all aware that we got shit that we got to prevent, you know, but at the same time, how difficult it is. At one point, do we have to do an intervention with ourselves? Like, damn, I wish I could have just, you know, gone on those runs every day. Now I'm out here, you know, trying to fucking do all this other shit.
Exactly.
Thanks again, everybody, for tuning into Therapy House. Here to remind you to check out our link tree at linktree/therapy_house. There you can find all the links for our podcast website, the different platforms that we are broadcasting on, individual links to our personal pages. Like, comment, rate, and review our podcast so that we can grow. And of course, subscribe so that you'll be the first to know when we drop something new. Until then, we'll see you next time.